Hey everybody, Tucker Boyle here with my friend Ben Hemming.
Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I guess it's morning where we are, but wherever you are, it's good to be with you.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here. We just had a prayer before we started the recording, and I was thinking about the people that would click on this video and just feeling a lot of love and compassion for you. And also, I just want to honor your journey and your courage to lean into overcoming pornography through Jesus Christ. This is a challenging and sacred path you're walking that ultimately can help you become a deeper, closer disciple to Jesus Christ as you learn to overcome the things that you're facing. So, we're happy to spend some time with you on this video talking about navigating escape behaviors and dopamine. So you may know a little bit about dopamine. You'll know a little bit more perhaps by the end of this video, or maybe we'll just review. But we want to help you really with this navigating. Every human on this planet deals with escape behaviors and dopamine. So let's dig into it a little bit. Ben, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll start right here. Oftentimes, we might beat ourselves up and tell ourselves stories that, oh, I'm the worst. I look at pornography and I have this habit. I must be wicked. I must be bad. I must just be weaker than everybody else. I must not be a good disciple of Jesus Christ. And none of those soundtracks help us, right? When in reality, pornography is often all about escape. It's more about getting away from our difficult feelings than it is about sexual appetite. And we know that even Jesus had to navigate the escape reflex, right? In Gethsemane, he prayed, Father, let this cup pass from me. You can even hear in his words, in his phrasing here, and I can almost sense at the moment, like, Father, this is just too much. And Jesus was tempted to escape. He wanted to go some other way other than forward into the difficulties, into the pain in Gethsemane. And yet, his next word, nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And so it is a human thing, and Jesus experienced this desire to escape. And so we're going to dig into this. So how can we follow Jesus into overcoming escape behaviors? Well, this is what happens inside of us when we have difficult feelings. We have what's called a buffer response. Buffer response. Ben, do you want to describe a buffer response for us?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happens when we want to escape is that there's some underlying emotions and these feelings can be hard and difficult. And so what we want to do is buffer, meaning we kind of and I like this little guy here, he's building up walls. And that's a lot what happens with pornography is it blocks those emotions for a feeling for a moment. It numbs those feelings for a moment. And so we end up escaping what it is we should be feeling. And so pornography buffers us from feeling those feelings. And then over time, we end up getting these stacks and stacks of feelings that need to be felt, that need to be processed. And so we want to help you not escape and recognize pornography for what it is, that it's just a buffer response. And sometimes we get up in our heads and talk about, how awful and how bad. And yes, we want this eliminated, but let's recognize why it's happening, what it is that's happening, and that we're trying to buffer something uncomfortable inside us, an underlying feeling, emotion.
Absolutely. And so this buffer response, Ben, like I mentioned, it's very human. And pornography is one way that we might try to escape difficult feelings, but it's just a very human thing to do this. I mean, we all do this very consistently. Ben, what are some of your go-to buffers when you're just like maybe you've had a bad day or a rough day or a rough experience and you don't want to feel it, and all of a sudden your mind starts calling for let's do this instead of feel this. What are your go-to buffers?
I probably scroll a little too much on my phone.
Mhm.
Facebook is the social media of choice for men in their mid 40s. And so I probably scroll a little bit too much on that. But even food can be a buffer for me. I notice when I get stressed and there's a lot of stuff going on, I find myself kind of aimlessly eating. And so, yeah, in total transparency, I'd say those are my
I
top.
remember something about cheese and tacos with you. Is that kind of
Oh, thank you. Here, now I'm feeling shame. I want
no, 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 no. Please, this
I'm
is
just teasing. I know I'm kidding. Yeah, tacos are definitely up there on my buffer list. So,
yeah.
what about you?
I myself, I have chocolate cravings for sure. I like dark chocolate too. And my mind wants to rationalize it. Hey, people say dark chocolate's healthy. Not in the amounts that I want to consume when I am buffering, right? Sometimes media, sometimes, my brain is just like, let's just shut down and go into a thoughtless state where something else is just bringing entertainment or something in some form, right? And obviously, the things that we're talking about, these buffers aren't inherently evil, right? Tacos, anything but evil, right? But the problem is, like Ben said, when we go to buffers, we push our feelings down. And one way it's been said is they go to the basement and lift weights and they come back stronger. So we're postponing something. And you might even buffer by doing things that are quote unquote good, like maybe losing yourself in work or homework or schoolwork or something like that. And the underlying problem, if we're going to define a buffer, it's anything we do to escape difficult feelings that has a net negative outcome. So anything we do to escape negative or difficult feelings that has a net negative outcome. And so it doesn't have to be something that's um, inherently bad, but it is, as we've talked about, away and toward values decisions. It's an away decision because our values obviously bring us closer to Christ and to doing what's most needed in the moment. So the buffer response, superhuman, we all have it. And pornography is part of this buffer response if you have the habit, and your brain just wants some relief. Ben, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
blast?
for sure. BLAST is a great acronym to know what it is that you're trying to escape. And we often call these trigger points. If someone was to come in for counseling and I was to ask the question, well, tell me what are your triggers? One of these things may come up. BLAST stands for bored, lonely, angry, stressed, tired. And this list, of course, is not all comprehensive, but it's a pretty good indication of what we're feeling that prefaces the behavior that we're trying to eliminate. So we might invite you for a moment to consider your cycle and what it is you're trying to escape. I know as I've met with a lot of people in counseling settings, especially college age kids, that right around the time of finals, there's just this huge stress buildup inside of them, high levels of cortisol, and they really want some relief. And so what do? Pornography ends up happening more right around that finals time. I talk to individuals who have hard situations in their family where maybe they get in a fight with mom and dad and they get this anger build up and they do not like how that feels. So again, the escape comes, the buffer comes. A lot of people, it happens late at night or early in the morning when they're tired and worn down. And so knowing what goes on inside of you, and this coincides with previous recordings that we've done, that we want to name our emotions, name it to tame it. And as we notice these feelings and sit with them, we can say to ourselves, there's no need to escape, right? I can sit with this. There's no need to buffer. And even a simple statement of, I'm about to buffer or I'm buffering to increase that level of awareness where you can sit with these things. And these emotions are great to sit with. I feel, especially with boredom, boredom is really the gateway to creativity and learning to sit with that and not immediately escape. A lot of great things can come from that.
Yeah. And you can see Christ doing this, recognizing I want to buffer, right? I want to escape this moment, and then nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And it's what Ben was just saying. Oh, I want to buffer. Being aware enough, this is why we do these practices in this course. Being aware enough to notice when we want to buffer is huge. If you can catch yourself and say, I want to buffer, or like Christ saying, let this cup pass from me. Oh, I'm trying to escape. And then that means you're watching. And then we pray, we watch and pray. Father, can you help me sit with this and not run away from it? If you have the awareness to recognize the buffering reflex and then the presence to reach for God and presence and to sit with it, then you will take a turn toward overcoming your pornography habit because it won't be an unconscious cycle anymore. It will start to become conscious. And these cycles don't live in consciousness like they do in unconsciousness. So we're excited for you to practice this and start noticing these emotions rising up. Oh, blast emotion right now. What am I feeling? This is what I'm feeling. And the more conscious it becomes, the more you'll start to overcome this habit.
Yeah, in fact, maybe just for a moment, we'd invite you to pause the video and write down if you've got a journal or in your phone and think about the last few times that you've escaped and whatever the escape was, and write down which of the blast feelings were you escaping and see if you can pinpoint which of those you most identify with during your moments where you escape. So we'll invite you to pause that.
Ben, I think that's a
Yeah.
really important practice. Um, as you become more aware of that, now that you've written those down, and you might even take a minute to think, when I feel bored, where do I feel it in my body? When I feel lonely, how do I experience that? Or angry, stressed, tired, whatever it is. And then those can start to become little flags that pop up, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling that. Now I can do a net practice and notice and name and embody, and then take a step toward my values, or a newt practice, or whatever it is. So you're well on your way to awareness as you practice this. And let me just tell a quick story if I can, Ben. Like when I was a YSA bishop, and people would come in and say, Bishop, I'm struggling with pornography. I know I shouldn't have this problem, and I thought it was gone during my mission, and often express frustration and shame. Um, I would often, like early on, I didn't know what to do other than cheer them on, like I've talked about in the past. But I noticed this pattern when I would say, can you just tell me, let's not worry about the habit for a moment. Tell me how life is going right now. And they would often just list things, not knowing this acronym. Oh man, I'm just so lonely. I moved away from home. Uh, I don't have my mission companions anymore. I don't have my friends around me. I'm just feeling so lonely. Or they would say I'm so stressed because of school, or I'm bored or tired, or whatever it was. And what happened to me as a YSA bishop is my heart would just swell in compassion for them. And I would see this as a person that was in pain, whose brain was using something to try to deal with the pain. And I didn't feel one bit like condemning anybody that came into my office. That way, I felt like saying what Christ would say to the woman taken in adultery, neither do I condemn you. And we hope that when you see this pattern in yourself, it will help you stop condemning yourself or tearing yourself down, because this habit is a pain response. And if you can start to see yourself as somebody that's in pain that needs to deal with the pain and process the pain and move through it toward healing, then that will lessen your shame and help you feel closer to Christ, help you feel his love and him working with you as you move forward through this.
Yeah, in fact, Tucker, this is reminding me of one of my favorite quotes. And this comes from a great talk, Jesus Christ, the Perfect Leader by President Kimball. And He said Jesus saw sin as wrong, but also was able to see sin as springing from deep and unmet needs on the part of the sinner. This permitted him to condemn the sin without condemning the individual. We can show forth our love for others even when we are called upon to correct them. We need to be able to look deeply enough into the lives of others to see the basic causes for their failures and their shortcomings. I love this quote because it speaks of the awareness of Jesus, that as he sees someone acting out, he was able to see blast. He was able to see. In fact, I love whenever he taught the disciples, he would feed them first, right? That let's help everybody's moods calm down here, provide them with some fish and bread and so it is with us. I love this quote of looking deeply enough into the lives of others, but could we say we need to be able to look deeply enough into the lives of ourselves and see that we have some unmet needs. And if you're tired, take a nap, right? If you're bored, there's many other things to do besides escaping and viewing pornography and get to know yourself really well and be aware of the feelings inside of you.
Mm. I love how this helps us get to know Christ on a deeper level and how he's able to look at a woman taken in adultery and see, this adultery, this act of adultery was the result of a deep unmet need. This woman is probably wanting connection or to cover up some pain, or she's probably going through something really deep and hard, and she's a good person that has made a choice to buffer in a way that is has a net negative outcome for sure. So we're not saying, yeah, sin isn't bad or anything like that, or any of these actions aren't helpful. What we're saying is we can look deeper and start to see compassion. And when we see with these eyes of compassion, I think the spirit can flood in, love can flood in, healing can flood in, where we haven't been looking deep enough before, so the wound couldn't be seen, addressed, and healed. So we're excited for you to practice this and just slow down and see your own deep unmet needs. And so when we're having this type of pain, our brain reward system just has a mechanical way of dealing with these difficult things. Ben, you're an expert on this stuff. Why don't you tell us about dopamine?
Well, and here comes my hand again, right? Your hand is your brain. And this reward system, it's in the centerpiece. And this is where all of these difficult emotions from blast are coming. And so what we want to do is soothe this midbrain, and that's dopamine, right? It's rewarding yourself with pleasure, satisfaction, motivation, and it encourages a repeat. And so this is where these kind of neural pathways are being formed, which is when I'm bored, I escape. When I'm lonely, I escape. And then that pleasure center gets hit with that dopamine, and that causes a repeat. You probably have heard of Pavlov's dog if you studied psychology in college or in high school. And of course, there'd be a bell, and he would start to salivate because it would remind him of the meat powder. And so it was that the dog would salivate every time the bell would ring. And so there are things going on inside of your brain. But as you slow things down and name your emotions, and if you can even name dopamine, even a simple statement of it's dopamine, right? Reminding yourself what's going on in the midbrain, you can soothe that midbrain by increasing your awareness of your emotions, of your thoughts, of your feelings, and becoming more aware of what's going on inside of you. So that's why we talk about dopamine, right? It really contributes to these habits and encourages repeat of behaviors. I love this at the end. It says, even if they aren't necessary for survival, pornography is not necessary for survival, and it is an away behavior from your values. So just name it, notice it, sink into your body, increase that awareness, and lean into your values as we've taught with Ned.
Yeah. I'm remembering a recent experience when it was during March Madness this year, and I was just trying to look up and see the BYU basketball game. And so I was at my house in the office, and I got on there, tried to find the game online. And as I was searching for it, pornography popped up on my screen. And I was like, whoa, I would like that didn't, I wasn't searching for that in any way, shape, or form. My wife was in the room and I was like, hey, hun, can you take care of this and get this off my screen for me? And in that moment, I was reminded how the brain works, right? It had been a while since I had an encounter like that on my computer. And I could just feel that dopamine center kick up. And it's real. It's like, hey, this is an easy way to get increased dopamine by going down this. So I had to do what we're teaching in this class. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to notice a name. I'm going to embody, and I'm going to surf that until it subsides. And we don't need to shame ourselves or beat ourselves up for having the desire for that dopamine hit. That's part of being human. But we do need to, and if we're going to escape the patterns, learn what to do when it comes up. And so we're going to take a quote from President Nelson. He says, the answer is always found in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, whatever questions or problems you have. And we're going to look at an example. This is Christ in the boat with his disciples. In Mark, it says he was sleeping on a pillow, and it describes this big storm, big enough that the waves were coming into the boat. And here's Christ sleeping on a pillow. I just love that image. Ben, Jesus just seems to have a peace and stillness about him that defies the outer world, right? Which is just so
Wow.
beautiful.
Yeah, this
Uh,
is one of my favorite stories. Thanks, Tucker. I'm glad you brought up he has a pillow because I know I'm often a wreck and I've got a storm going on inside of me. And I think Jesus would say, look, I totally recognize you've got all kinds of blast, right? This blast, this storm. And yeah, anyways, keep going.
Well, and you can hear that in the disciples' voice as he's sleeping and they're worried they're going to die. And they wake him up and they say, carest thou not that we perish? You can you can hear the fear, the stress, the anxiety where they're coming from. And Jesus wakes up. And in Matthew, he says it at the end. In Mark, he says it right away. But he says, ah, peace be still. Why are you fearful? And Jesus is coming from this place of awareness where, yeah, perhaps fear came up in Jesus as well, him being human, but he's able to stay aware and watch rather than be overtaken like the disciples apparently are when they're like, we're all going to die, all is lost. But Jesus is able to watch and say, ah, peace be still. Why are you fearful? It's okay. Ben, what strikes you from this story that is an example that we could emulate from?
Well, earlier today we were talking about the storm of temptation and the urge that comes up inside of us. And another urge I was thinking is the urge of anger. I've had a lot of people lately that I've been speaking with who the anger kind of surfaces. And the initial response when these things come is, this is bad. This has to leave. Make it go away. And Tucker and I were talking earlier about how Jesus can sit with us in our storms, right? Jesus is not off on the shore somewhere saying, hey, as soon as this storm is gone, I'll have you guys all come to me where it's calm. No, he's out in the storm with them on the boat and he's calm. And that's the Jesus that I believe in. He's with me in my boredom. He's with me in my loneliness, in my anger and stress, and in my feeling tired. And I love how all the disciples in this picture are moving towards Jesus because as we move towards his calm nature and his ability to stand still in the storm, it calms me. And I can sit in storms because Jesus sits with me.
Mm, that's so powerful, Ben. In a recent class uh, that we had on overcoming pornography through Jesus Christ, somebody stayed after class and was like, Brother Boyle, are you telling me that Jesus can be with me while I'm being tempted, while I'm having an urge? And I was so excited that he was asking this question because This is the best news ever. Yes, Jesus is with us right in that moment. And he was like, he was blown away because he always thought that the spirit left and that he was alone and it was just him versus the temptation. And it can often feel that way. And if we have that belief in our head that Jesus is gone and we're just on our own to fight this, man, we are I am so weak. But when we can accept that Jesus is right here with us, maybe we need to slow down, come to stillness in order to sense his presence. But if we will have that confidence and that trust that if we can slow down and be still, that he'll help us navigate these urges, these difficult feelings. He'll help us not buffer. He'll help us see that dopamine is just a temporary desire for this moment. And then if we slow down, he can help us navigate those waves. Man, we're going to move forward in a faithful, confident way to overcome this habit. Ben, do you want to finish us off here?
Yeah, so here's our practice for today, and we'd invite you to do this. So take a moment and just observe your life. Observe what it looks like when you escape. And so we're going to invite you to write down in a journal or on your phone, look back at the last few escape times. What was the time of day? What was the day of the week? What was the location? As we started earlier, I told you a lot of times as I work with young single adults, it can happen around finals time. For some, it's after a breakup or even before a date. For some, it's an argument with the parents, or maybe it's when you're tired and at night. So we want you to be able to look at some of those underlying unmet needs. And then write down what were you doing that led to the slip up. Now we invite you to dive down a little bit deeper. What was the possible emotion? Is it loneliness? Is it anger, stress, tired, boredom? And maybe some others that we haven't even listed. And we would invite you as you increase your level of awareness to always take this approach, right? And not only with a slip up of pornography, but look at some other times in your life where you're escaping. We want you to be able to increase that awareness and feel all the wide range of emotions that we were sent here to experience. So go ahead and pause and take a moment and write this out. And we'd encourage you to keep noticing those emotions throughout the week. Go ahead and pause. All right. Tucker, do you have some final thoughts?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks everybody for being with us on this video and doing these exercises, practicing awareness so that we can get more into that place of awareness and stillness that Jesus operates from. We're excited for you to lean into this. And by the way, if you ever want to join us for our Overcoming Pornography class, it's on Zoom, it's anonymous. You can mute your screen, change your name on the screen if you want. But we try to create a space where you can feel like you're not alone, where you can ask questions. These recordings, it's got a lot of hopefully good information and practice time for you. But if you want to come join us in the class and feel the support and love of many people that are seeking to overcome pornography through Jesus Christ, we'd love to have you with us. We'll put a link in the description to the class. So if you want to join us at 8:30 Wednesday nights, Mountain Time, we'd love to have you with us. And so just thanks for being with us. We know that this is a challenging path, and we know that this challenging path has the potential to tie you even closer to Jesus Christ than you already are. As you learn these skills, these practices, become more aware and sense that He's right here with you, right now, even right in this moment, and always. And we bear that testimony in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Sending much love. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.